You could say I've played Arc Raiders a bit too much. With over 150 hours in the game, it's probably time I go touch grass. However, this has given me just enough time to figure out the pros and cons for every single weapon in Arc Raiders for both PvP and PvE. So here's my tier list for every single weapon in the game, with separate tier lists for both PvE gameplay and PvP gameplay. At the end, I'll throw in a bonus tier list that showcases what I think to rank all weapons if PvE and PvP is combined. I'd like to give credit to Crazy Trick for creating this tier list maker template as well. Let's start with the PvP tier list. Hullcracker is obviously D. You can actually do damage with players, but you may as well throw rubber ducks at people. The hairpin is in C tier. It's okay, and a lot of people will stand by the gun, but I'd rather have anything else. After eliminating matriarchs with this thing and running hairpin-only PvP runs, I can confidently say there are so many better weapons than this, and I'd only run this if I absolutely had to. The damage per shot's pretty decent, but the fire rate is really low, and any other weapon is just going to have a much better time. There's no reason to purposely take this in unless you're doing a challenge. And I know people say that, oh, you can silently take out cameras, but you can't. The camera breaks and it still makes noise. People are going to know. Next is the Rattler. Even when this is fully upgraded, it's just lacking a little bit compared to the other weapons. Reloading a couple bullets at a time instead of one whole mag really slows it down when you need it to pull out a bit more damage. And I can't count how many times I've lost fights with me using the Rattler when the enemy has something like an Anvil or a Stitcher or an El Toro. The damage profile just doesn't quite seem to compete with the rest of the weapons, and that includes all of the other common weapons. Next is the Arpeggio. Once this is fully upgraded, it does have a really nice fire rate, but once again, I've battle tested this quite a bit, and it just really struggles to put out the damage numbers for it to be able to compete in a fair 1v1 against other targets. And it's a burst weapon, so you could peek in and out of cover if you want to try and make it a bit more useful, but at that point you may as well be running an Anvil, an El Toro, a Renegade, or so many other peek and shoot weapons. Next is the Pharaoh. I think the Pharaoh is really good when you're able to take advantage of medium range encounters and have enough time to reload between shots. It's very situational, right? A lot of damage per shot, but then you got to reload. And once it's fully upgraded, the reload time isn't too bad, but that gives your enemies enough time to really kind of get on top of you. The Anvil is basically the Pharaoh, but with less reloads, right? Sure, the Pharaoh will do more damage longer range, but if you're dealing damage at that distance anyway, it's kind of hard to capitalize on it. If you're going to take this kind of weapon, definitely just take the Anvil. Equalizer is an amazing PvE weapon, but it really struggles to do much damage to pure health. It'll wreck arc shields, but not really do much besides that. And also using this is just a PvP magnet. As soon as people see this laser beam flying through the air, you'll have the whole server chasing you down. I've lost countless equalizers in fights that I feel like I should have won, but it just doesn't put out the damage for you to be able to do that. I've also won a lot of fights with this weapon, so it's not necessarily terrible, but it's just clunky. It's not convenient to use as a PvP weapon and is primarily designed to take down the big arc. Next, we put the Kettle in A tier. To me, the Kettle is a really nice all-round weapon for PvP. If you can click fast, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. It feels more stable than using a Stitcher because you can control how quickly you're firing, right? If you need to sort of get a couple longer range shots to try and tap someone's head, you can do that. You can control the precision a little bit better. Or if you need to spam fire up close, it works well too. I really like the Kettle, and it's a really nice, strong weapon, although when it comes down to pure DPS, there are better options. Next is the Berletta. The Berletta's damage profile isn't terrible, and it's kind of a similar story to the Kettle, especially if you can hit headshots, where the 2.5 times damage multiplier really starts to kick in. This fully upgraded with a nice magazine is surely going to ruin some players' day, but when it comes to pure DPS, weapons like the Stitcher will still come out on top. Then we have the Torrente. This weapon is really, really strong. In fact, it probably has the highest DPS in the game if every single bullet hits. Now, it has ridiculous spread. You need to crouch to get better spread or be right up in someone's face. So unless you're literally sticking the barrel down someone's face, it's not going to get that full DPS value. But even if you do miss some shots, it's still putting out a lot of damage and can absolutely wreck multiple players in a single magazine. Just be aware of the large reload time and the hefty weight to carry it. Definitely a great weapon though, although its range is quite limited. On the other side of the fence, we've got the Osprey. It's got the same problem, but in reverse. Really good at long range and nice damage potential, but a slow time between reloads that makes it really clunky to use if you're trying to deal with any engagements up close. I actually think the Osprey is one of the more underrated weapons, but it's outshone by the Renegade, which just kind of outperforms it in every way, besides not having a scope, I suppose. The truth is, Arc Raiders is the kind of game where trying to deal damage from a distance just doesn't really get you much results. Next is the Bobcat. The Bobcat is a really decent weapon, except the Stitcher seems to have a faster time to kill for some reason. But it's just not as reliable as the Stitcher. The Bobcat has a faster fire rate, so you empty the mag way too quickly, which means if you have any time where the mag isn't hitting, that time is punished massively. Whereas the Stitcher is a slightly slower fire rate SMG, but if you hit those shots, you're going to feel it. Next up, we have the Aphelion. The Aphelion is actually pretty good in PvP. It's a really nice burst weapon that can shred through shields and take down players in just a couple bursts. It has a very slow reload time though, and you'll need to ADS for quite a little while to get the full damage longer range. Up close though, it doubles up as a nice little shotgun. I actually think this weapon is really underrated for PvP, but even so, the fire rate is slower than the Renegade. So whilst it has higher damage, the Renegade just fires faster, it reloads faster, and it has a faster time to kill, even if the Aphelion shots are doing more damage. Next is the Volcano. Right, here's the thing, right? It's a shotgun, and it does less damage per shot than the Il Toro. It's a faster fire rate shotgun, but it kind of feels like if you have a shotgun in your hands, you want to be impactful with each and every shot, so you can peek in and out of cover. The Volcano is basically the full auto shotty, and it just feels like in most games, full auto shotguns just don't work out. And it's especially true in Arc Raiders, which is a third-person game, where peeking angles and holding corners is just so powerful. I still think it's a good weapon though, but it's not as good as the Il Toro. Next is the Patina. Actually a pretty decent weapon. It's doing a lot of damage per shot. The overall time to kill is pretty decent, but it has a slow reload and a limited mag size, and you cannot upgrade the mag, which really becomes a difficult problem if you're dealing with multiple players. Still, I really like the weapon. I just think that it could do with a bit of a mag size uptick for it to compete with the rest of the other weapons. Next is the Jupiter. I think the Jupiter is a really good PvP weapon. A massive amount of damage per shot, but it has quite a horrible charge up time, and players will know you're about to shoot them. If you get skilled with it, you can peek in and out of cover and cause people a lot of pain and suffering, but you may as well just be using an anvil. It seems more efficient to use an anvil, and there's less room for error when it comes down to charging up the shot and trying to hit it. The anvil, you just click and shoot and don't have to deal with that silly charge up time. Damage is great, but that clunky charge up really lets it down. Alright then, let's put the Stitcher in S tier. Really insane time to kill. You can upgrade it really easily, stick a nice mag on it, so it's got a decent amount of damage per mag, and it just shreds through all players. It is, in my opinion, the best PvP weapon for those situations when you're out in the open and just need to blast someone with as much damage as possible in as little time as possible. And it's just ridiculous to say this, that this is a common weapon. This whole tier list is not biased by rarity, right? You can see the legendary weapons in A tier. I'm not rating them depending on how hard it is to get the weapon. I'm only rating them on how good they are to take down players, and the Stitcher takes down players way too easily. It is ridiculous. Next, we have the Il Toro. Hold an angle with this thing and you're just going to ruin someone's day. It doesn't matter how slow the fire rate is on this thing. You can just hold a corner and peek in and out every time it's ready to fire, and you're taking players down in just 3 shots. It is ridiculously useful and will win you most fights against pretty much any other weapon. The only downside, of course, is that it is a shotgun, right? So keep that in mind. But yeah, if you're in distance, then people are going to have a bad day. The Anvil, in my opinion, is just as good as the Il Toro, if not better. The Anvil, with headshots, can 2-shot any player. Doesn't matter what armor they have, which is just ridiculous. The amount of body shots will depend on what armor they have, but it's going to be between 3 and 4 shots. Overall, it offers that really nice peak playstyle, just like the Il Toro does. And if you can hit headshots, the time to kill is going to outperform pretty much anything else in the game. Fully upgrade this thing and it fires pretty fast as well, meaning that if you do miss a shot, it doesn't have to be the end of the world. And if you play cover well, this thing just absolutely dominates. The Venator, in my opinion, even after the nerf, is still worthy of the S tier title. The time to kill is still really good once fully upgraded, although not quite as fast as before. And the magazine size and overall damage profile per mag is just quite ridiculous. The fact that this thing is so stable and easy to control is really great as well. And because it's single fire, you can have a little bit more control when you need to shoot a little bit longer range. Venator is probably not going to beat a Stitcher in a straight duel 1v1 right up close, but at longer distances, I would argue the Venator will probably come out on top. Next, we have the Renegade. When it comes to peaking angles just a little bit further than 10 meters, the Renegade really becomes the best choice. It has an incredibly fast fire rate for a weapon of its kind. The other battle rifles and snipers are really slow firing. It also reloads really fast and has the benefit that it can take an extended mag to boost up its mag size quite considerably. Catch someone out in the open as they're traveling through the map with this thing, and you actually have a decent chance of knocking them, unlike, say, the Osprey, or maybe even the Jupiter, which just fires far too slow. At least in comparison to the Renegade. I think the Tempest is ridiculously underrated. It has a time to kill that rivals the Venator when both weapons are fully upgraded. It also has a decent magazine size and just is a little bit more stable at using at slightly longer ranges. I think that when people start to get the materials and blueprints to craft this thing, you're going to start to see this a little bit more commonly than the Venator. I think it'll end up being the go-to choice because it's stable, easy to use, and can take down people quite easily with its larger magazine size. Right, now it's time for the PVE tier list. Things change a lot when we talk about PVE. Firstly, the Hullcracker goes straight to S tier, and yes, this is after the nerf. It might be more expensive to craft or buy the ammo now, and it might take more shots to take down the big arc, but there really is not anything that can quite match it in terms of pure damage to arc. The other weapons, which are really good at dealing with arc, which we'll get into in a minute, have some limitations, right? The Hullcracker doesn't matter, just keep firing it, and whatever arc you're fighting will eventually go down a lot quicker than, say, even an equalizer. At the bottom, though, we have the Stitcher and the Bobcat. We're going to put those together with very low arc armor penetration and a very fast fire rate. It just becomes really tricky to secure arc kills with these weapons. You'll end up burning through ammo before you've taken down a few wasps and hornets, and it just feels really inconvenient to use. I would argue that the Hairpin is better than both the Stitcher and Bobcat. You can fire slowly, aim true to where you need to hit, and make sure that you're not wasting ammo to take down the arc. By the time you've taken down a wasp with a hairpin, you've probably gone through about 6 or 7 hairpin shots, but with a Stitcher or Bobcat, it probably will come closer to like 20. Either way, all of these weapons aren't really that great at taking down arc, but I just want to point out the differences. The Kettle is a weird one. I kind of like it for taking down arc because it just feels a little bit more stable and feels like a hairpin if you didn't have to reload, so I would rate it higher than the hairpin, but without that arc armor penetration, you're really only going to want to use it to take down wasps or hornets anyway. Anything else, and it's just not really worth using. The same can be said for the Volcano and the El Toro. In a pinch, they'll work against the arc, especially the smaller ones like the Fireball and the Pop, but anything bigger, and it's just not a good idea. You're going to burn through your ammo before the arc even really takes any damage. For B, we've got the Berletta. It's okay. You know, you'll take down some of the weaker arc pretty quickly, but it's still going to struggle with the stronger arc. Same can be said with most of the assault rifles. The Tempest, Arpeggio, and Rattler are pretty much on the same page there. You can use them to take down all of the weaker arc, but when it comes to arc with higher arc armor penetration, you'll just have to burn through so much ammo before you kind of take them out. Yeah, you could focus on the Rocketeer's thrusters or the Bombardier and Bastion's knees, and it will work, but yeah, that's a lot of ammo to eat through and a lot of time. We move on to A tier with the Pharaoh. You might have to reload in between each shot, but it's just going to do so much more damage to arc armor, and you're going to have an easier time with ammo preservation and actually taking down the bigger arc. Whether it's a Bombardier, Bastion, or Rocketeer, the Pharaoh does well enough to deal with them. Just make sure you've got yourself set up with some good cover, because it's going to take quite a while to take down some of the arc with this thing. It's not as good as an Anvil, but it does its job just a little bit slowly. The Patina is a really good arc armor weapon, It's obviously the only assault rifle with higher arc armor penetration, which means it's just going to have an easier time taking down things like Rocketeers and Leapers. Although it's not super efficient, you're still going to be eating through a lot of ammo before you take them down. And the worst thing is it uses heavy ammo, so it just feels a little ammo inefficient, although not the worst choice, it's not too bad. Next we have the Torrente. To me, the Torrente does a great job of dealing with flyers and it knocks them out of the sky in really funny ways, but it eats through ammo like crazy, and you have to put in a lot of shots to take down any arc. If you wanted to take down the Queen or the Matriarch, for example, you'll run out of ammo before either of those is dead. Which is a shame because the DPS on this thing is ridiculous, especially against arc that has no armor left. It just eats through ammo too quickly and its shots aren't precise enough. The Osprey is really good, honestly, for taking down arc. It's a little bit inconvenient up close, but if you're dealing with flyers, you can make sure you're extra precise with hitting those back thrusters. And even for Rocketeers as well, it does quite a good job. It doesn't have as good arc armor penetration as a Pharaoh, but it fires faster, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you can take a Rocketeer down with one of these things. Next, the Aphelion. It has the same amount of arc armor penetration as a Pharaoh, but it fires 2 shots at once instead of the 1, and in total it has 5 shots before it has to reload, essentially. You can get 5 trigger pulls before you have to reload. It's a double tapper, so 10 shots technically. Yeah, it will rip through arc armor, but that slow reload can really catch you out. And you have to aim down sights quite a lot to get precise shots on it. I think it's pretty decent, but there just are better choices. Next, we have the Renegade. Once the arc armor is gone, the Renegade does such a job at taking down arc. It has the highest damage per inventory slot in the game, besides the Osprey. So the amount of damage you're doing for a stack of ammo is really great. So if you're planning to take down a Bastion or Bombardier, or even the Queen and Matriarch, and you focus on the exposed armor, once the armor is broken off, the Renegade does it better than no other. It's just going to struggle a little bit with taking off the armor first, but when it comes to certain arc, like the Bastion and Bombardier, you don't have to worry about that. You just shoot the yellow knees, the exposed parts, and it doesn't need the arc armor penetration. The Venator is pretty much the same story. A lot of damage per inventory size, and really fast reloads and really quick use time. So Renegade and Venator are really good. Venator obviously for up close, Renegade for a little bit longer range. The Anvil is really, really good at breaking off armor. It's got more shots than a Pharaoh, and as long as you're close enough so that the damage fall-off doesn't kick in, you're going to break through any armor fairly quickly. So whether you're taking down a Queen on a budget loadout or want to try and bring down some Rocketeers, the Anvil is just a better way to do it than most other guns in the game. And then we have the Equalizer. The Equalizer is an interesting weapon. If we're talking about big arc like the Matriarch and Queen, this will rip off their armor in seconds. There is no weapon like it. I feel like arc armor penetration works in an interesting way. For each bullet that is fired, damage is done to the arc armor. And because the Equalizer is firing 50 bullets in a very short time, the armor just falls off. It's a really great weapon at exposing armor on a lot of different arc, which then you can follow up with whatever other weapon you've got. You could even do it with a hairpin at that point. It doesn't really matter because the armor's gone. The Jupiter is also really good. It will just penetrate through the armor. You won't destroy it in the same way as the Equalizer, but it will just go straight through it. If you're trying to take down a Queen or Matriarch solo, it will end up breaking before the Queen or Matriarch is dead, but it will get awfully close to taking it out, and that's just with a single weapon. It's also really good at dealing with Rocketeers, Bastions, and Bombardiers because doesn't need to worry about any of the armor whatsoever. Alright, that's all of the weapons for PvE and PvP. Here's my overview of every weapon if I were to rate them sort of as fair as possible on a single tier list, although I think that's kind of hard to do. What do you think? Let me know, and I'd love to hear your opinions. Cheerio!